I was a surrogate for my sister 5 years ago. Now she's divorcing and wants to give the child back to me. She's 4 years old and calls me Auntie. /am is asshole. I, 35F, need to preface this by saying I've rewritten this post about 15 times now. Every version sounds either too cold or too dramatic, and maybe that's because there's no way to tell this story that doesn't make someone look terrible. Including me. 3 days ago, my sister called me at 11:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I just got my son, 2M, back to sleep after a nightmare, and I was finally crawling back into bed. My husband was already asleep. The phone lit up with her name, and I almost didn't answer. My sister doesn't call late unless something is wrong, and I was so tired. I answered anyway. I can't do this anymore. Her voice was flat. Empty. Not crying, not angry. Just, hello. She's yours. Come get her. For a second, I didn't understand. What? Who? What are you talking about? Lily. That's not her real name, but I need to protect her somehow. I can't do this. I can't be her mother. I never could. You need to come get her. My blood went cold. That's not. You can't just. If you don't take her, I'm calling CPS in the morning and telling them I can't care for her anymore. They'll put her in foster care. Is that what you want? I couldn't breathe. My husband stirred next to me, mumbling something, and I slipped out of bed and into the hallway, pressing my back against the wall like it could hold me up. You can't be serious, I whispered. She's 4 years old. She's your daughter. My sister laughed. It was the worst sound I've ever heard. Is she? Is she really? Because I've spent 4 years trying to feel like her mother, and I can't. I look at her and I feel nothing. I've been pretending this whole time, and I can't pretend anymore. Mark left. He's gone. And now it's just me and her in this house, and I can't do it. I can't. Where is she right now? I asked. Sleeping. She doesn't know anything's wrong. She thinks Daddy's on a business trip. Another hollow laugh. I've been lying to her for 2 months. I spent the next hour on the phone with my sister, trying to talk her down, trying to understand what was happening, trying to figure out if this was real or if she was just having a breakdown moment that would pass. By the end, I wasn't sure of anything except that my sister was genuinely, deeply unwell, and that somewhere in her house, a little girl was sleeping peacefully, unaware that her entire world was about to collapse. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room in the dark, and I thought about the first time I held that little girl. Update 1. The surrogacy, background. I need to explain how we got here, because none of this makes sense without context. 5 years ago, my sister and her husband had been trying to conceive for almost 3 years. IVF had failed twice. My sister was diagnosed with a uterine condition that made carrying a pregnancy nearly impossible, though her eggs were healthy. They were devastated. My sister had wanted to be a mother her entire life. She was the one who played house as a kid, who babysat every neighbor's child, who talked about baby names when we were teenagers. Motherhood wasn't just something she wanted, it was the core of her identity. I was 30, unmarried, healthy, and I loved my sister more than anyone in the world. When she asked me, through tears, apologizing before the words even came out, if I would consider being their gestational carrier, I said yes almost immediately. Looking back, I should have thought about it longer. I should have gone to therapy first. I should have asked more questions. But my sister was in pain, and I could fix it. That felt like enough. We did everything by the book. Lawyers, contracts, psychological evaluations, medical screenings. My sister's eggs, her husband's sperm, my uterus. I would carry their baby, and then I would hand that baby over, and everyone would be happy. The pregnancy was hard. I won't lie about that. Morning sickness that lasted 5 months. Gestational diabetes. Preeclampsia at the end that put me in the hospital for a week. But I kept telling myself it was worth it. I was giving my sister the greatest gift anyone could give. And then she was born. I carried her for 9 months. I felt her kick. I heard her first cry. Then I handed her to my sister and pretended I was just the vessel. That's what I told myself. That's what everyone told me. You're giving them a gift. You're so selfless. She's not your baby, she's theirs. But here's the thing nobody tells you about surrogacy. Your body doesn't know it's not your baby. The hormones don't care about legal documents. When they placed her on my chest for those first few seconds, because they did, just for a moment, before handing her to my sister, my entire being screamed mine. I handed her over anyway. I signed the papers. I smiled in the hospital photos. And then I went home to my empty apartment and cried for 3 days straight. My sister says she can't love her. How do you not love your own child? But then, how do I explain the relief I felt when I handed her over? Because there was relief. Mixed with the grief, tangled up with the hormones and the exhaustion and the love, there was relief. I wasn't ready to be a mother. I didn't want to be a mother. Not then. I wanted to give my sister this gift and then go back to my life. And I did. I got therapy. I processed my feelings. I watched my niece grow up from a comfortable distance, birthday parties, holidays, the occasional weekend visit. She called me auntie. I bought her toys and took her to the zoo and then went home to my quiet apartment. 3 years ago, I met my husband. 2 years ago, we got married. 18 months ago, we had our son. I finally had the life I wanted, on my own terms, when I was ready. I thought the surrogacy chapter was closed. I thought I'd done my part and moved on. I was wrong. Update 2. The marriage collapse. I need to explain what happened to my sister's marriage, because it matters. My brother-in-law, I'll call him Mark, was never my favorite person, but he seemed to love my sister, and he was over the moon about becoming a father. For the first few years, everything seemed fine. They were happy. My niece was thriving. I'd visit and watch Mark play with her in the backyard, pushing her on the swing, laughing at her jokes. He seemed like a good dad. Then, about 8 months ago, my sister found out he'd been having an affair. Not just a fling, a 2-year relationship with a woman from his office. He'd been leading a double life almost since their daughter's 2nd birthday. The betrayal destroyed my sister. Not just emotionally, it was like watching someone's foundation crumble. Everything she'd believed about her life, her marriage, her family, turned out to be a lie. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping, started having panic attacks, and she started pulling away from her daughter. I noticed it at first in small ways. She'd call me to vent about Mark, and the conversations would go on for an hour without her mentioning the child once. When I'd visit, my niece would be watching TV in another room while my sister sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. The house was clean, the fridge was stocked, my niece was physically cared for, but there was this distance. I told myself it was just grief. Divorce is traumatic. She'd come back to herself eventually. But then Mark moved out officially. He filed for divorce. And in a move that still makes me sick to think about, he told my sister he didn't want custody. He'd take visitation, maybe, eventually, but he was moving to another state with his girlfriend. He wanted a fresh start. He abandoned his daughter like she was an inconvenient piece of furniture from his old life. My sister was devastated all over again. And something in her broke. She started saying things that worried me. That she'd never felt like a real mother. That the bond she'd expected to feel had never really formed. That she'd been performing motherhood this whole time, waiting for the love to kick in, and it never did. I tried to tell her this was depression talking. I tried to get her into therapy, on medication, anything. She went to a few appointments, got prescribed antidepressants, but she wasn't taking them consistently. She wasn't trying to get better. She was just giving up. And now here we are. A phone call at midnight. A threat to call CPS. A 4-year-old girl who has no idea her entire world is about to be ripped apart. Update 3. The conversation with my husband. The morning after my sister's call, I told my husband everything. We sat at our kitchen table with cold coffee, our son playing with blocks in the living room, and I laid it all out. His first reaction was shock. Then concern. For me, for my niece, even for my sister. My husband is a good man. He didn't immediately say no. He asked questions. He listened. But then the practical reality started to sink in. "Honey," he said carefully, "I love you. And I know this situation is horrible. But this isn't what I signed up for." He was right. When we got married, we talked about kids. We agreed on 1, maybe 2 eventually. We bought a house with 3 bedrooms, 1 for us, 1 for our son, 1 for an office/guest room. Our lives are built for a family of 3, maybe 4 someday. Not for suddenly absorbing a traumatized 4-year-old. "I'm not saying no," he continued. "I'm saying I need you to really think about this. About what it would mean. For us, for our son, for our marriage." My husband says this isn't what he signed up for. He's right. But she's 4 years old and her mother is trying to give her away like a returned purchase. That thought keeps circling in my head. Like a returned purchase. Like something that didn't work out, that didn't fit right, that can just be sent back. But she's not a purchase. She's a child. A child I gave birth to. "I'm not her mother," I said, and the words tasted like ash. My sister is her mother. Legally. In every way that matters. Except apparently it doesn't matter to your sister anymore. I didn't have an answer for that. Later that day, I drove to my sister's house alone. I needed to see my niece. I needed to see my sister. I needed to understand what was really happening before I could figure out what to do. My sister looked worse than I'd ever seen her. Gaunt, unwashed, wearing the same clothes she'd had on 3 days before when I'd last visited. The house was a mess, dishes piling up, toys scattered everywhere, a sour smell I couldn't identify. But my niece was fine. Physically fine, at least. She ran to me when I walked in, threw her arms around my legs and said, "Auntie! Auntie, I missed you." She calls me Auntie. She has no idea I'm the one who gave birth to her. If I take her now, what do I tell her when she's older? I picked her up and held her close, breathing in the little kid smell of her hair. She babbled about her toys, her favorite cartoon, her friend from preschool. A normal 4-year-old, oblivious to the hurricane about to hit her life. My sister watched from the doorway, arms crossed, face blank. "You see," she said quietly. "She loves you. She's always loved you. More than me." "That's not true." "It is. You don't see it because you're not here every day. But I see it. The way she lights up when you come over. The way she cries when you leave. She knows, somehow. On some level, she knows you're her real mother." "I'm not her mother." "You are." My sister's eyes filled with tears. "I've tried so hard. You have no idea how hard I've tried. But I look at her and I just feel nothing. Not love. Not hate. Just nothing. Like she's someone else's child I've been babysitting for 4 years. I keep waiting for the maternal instinct to kick in, and it never does." "That's depression," I said. "That's trauma. That's not reality. Then why has it felt like this since the day she was born?" I didn't have an answer. I still don't. I gave her up so she could have a better life. Now that life is falling apart and everyone's looking at me to fix it. Update 4. The legal reality. I spent the next 2 days researching, making calls, consulting with a family law attorney my husband found through a colleague. The legal situation is complicated. I am not my niece's legal parent. Despite giving birth to her, I signed away all parental rights as part of the surrogacy agreement. My sister and brother-in-law are her legal parents. The birth certificate lists them. In the eyes of the law, I'm just her aunt. If my sister truly wants to give up custody, she has options. She could try to get Mark to take full custody, but he's made it clear he's not interested, and courts are unlikely to force a parent to take a child they don't want. She could voluntarily relinquish custody to the state, which would put my niece into foster care. Or she could pursue a private custody transfer to a family member, meaning me. But I can't just take her. Even if I wanted to, there are processes. Home studies, background checks, court approvals. It could take months. And during those months, my niece would be in limbo, living with a mother who openly admits she can't love her. Or worse, in temporary foster care while paperwork gets sorted. The attorney was blunt. If your sister is genuinely unable to care for the child and is threatening to contact CPS, you need to move fast. If the child enters the foster system, it complicates everything. It's much easier to arrange a private custody transfer between family members before that happens. "How long would it take?" I asked. "If your sister is cooperative and the father doesn't contest?" "Possibly a few months. If there are complications, longer. Either way, you need to be certain this is what you want. Once you start this process, it's very hard to stop." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while my husband slept. Do I want this? That's the question I keep circling back to. Not can I do this, not should I do this, but do I want this? And the honest answer is, I don't know. I love my niece. I've always loved her. And yes, there's always been something extra there, a secret connection I never talked about, a pull I attributed to the surrogacy and tried to ignore. When she was a baby, I'd hold her and feel this overwhelming sense of recognition. Not ownership, not possessiveness, just recognition. Like I knew her in a way nobody else did. I told myself it was biology. Hormones. The echoes of pregnancy. I told myself it didn't mean anything because I wasn't her mother. But now everyone is telling me I need to become her mother, and I'm terrified. Not of her. Of failing her. Of resenting her. Of wrecking my marriage and damaging my son and still not being enough for this little girl who's already been failed by so many people. What if I take her and I turn out to be just like my sister? What if I can't bond with her either? What if the love I feel now isn't enough when I'm the one waking up with her nightmares and handling her tantrums and explaining why her mommy and daddy didn't want her anymore? Because that's the truth I'll have to tell her someday. Both of her parents, the ones who were supposed to love her unconditionally, the ones she's known her whole life, chose to walk away. I can dress it up however I want, but that's the reality. And no amount of "Auntie loves you" will erase that wound. Can I really do this? Is it selfish that I'm even asking? Update 5. Where things stand now, help needed. It's been a week since that first phone call. My sister has calmed down slightly. She's not threatening to call CPS immediately, but she's made it clear she hasn't changed her mind. She's agreed to give me some time to figure things out, but she's also packed a bag of my niece's things, just in case. She keeps talking about, "when you come get her," like it's already decided. Like my consent isn't necessary. My husband and I have had 4 conversations about this. The first 2 were hard. The third involved tears, mine and his. The fourth was quieter, more exhausted. "I'm not going to tell you no," he said. "If this is something you feel you have to do, I'll support you. But I need you to understand what you're asking me to accept. Our whole life changes. Our son's life changes. We don't even have a bedroom for her. We're not prepared for this. I know. And you're asking me to raise a child I didn't plan for, who isn't biologically connected to me at all, who's going to come with trauma and confusion and needs so much more than a normal kid. That's a lot to ask. I know. I'm not saying no. I'm saying I need you to acknowledge that this is huge. And I need you to be honest about whether you're doing this because you want to, or because you feel obligated." I couldn't answer him. I still can't. Because here's the truth I'm struggling with. I feel obligated. Of course I do. She's my niece, she's in crisis, and I'm the only one who can help. My sister is unwell. My brother-in-law is useless. My parents live across the country and aren't in any condition to raise a small child. If I don't step up, she goes into foster care. And I cannot let that happen. But obligation isn't the same as wanting. And I'm scared that if I take her out of obligation, she'll feel it. Kids know. They always know when they're not really wanted. Except, I do want her, I think. I've always wanted her, in a secret, shameful way I never let myself acknowledge. Every time I visited, part of me was jealous of my sister. Every time I said goodbye and drove home, part of me wished I didn't have to leave her. But wanting isn't the same as being ready. And I don't know if anyone is ever ready for something like this. My niece doesn't understand what's happening. She knows something is wrong. She's been clingy and anxious. Her preschool teacher says she's been having outbursts. My sister says she cries every night asking when Daddy's coming home. She doesn't know yet that Daddy isn't coming home. She doesn't know that Mommy is trying to give her away. She doesn't know that Auntie is actually the person who gave birth to her. She's 4 years old and her whole world is built on lies, and any decision I make will require more lies, at least for now. You're coming to live with Auntie for a while. How long until that becomes, you're living with Auntie now? How long until she asks why? How long until she's old enough to understand the truth? How do I even begin to explain? Your Mommy and Daddy loved you, but they couldn't take care of you anymore, so Auntie's going to take care of you now. That's what everyone says to say. It's what the therapists recommend. Child-appropriate language, focused on reassurance. But it's a lie. Her daddy didn't love her enough to stay. Her mommy couldn't make herself love her at all. And what am I? The woman who grew her inside my body and then gave her away because I wasn't ready, only to take her back 4 years later because everyone else failed? What kind of mother does that make me? I have a consultation with a family attorney next week to discuss next steps. My sister is willing to cooperate with a private custody transfer, which makes things easier. Mark has indicated he'll sign whatever he needs to sign. He just wants out, doesn't want any responsibility. If we move forward, I could potentially have temporary guardianship within a month or 2. Full custody could take longer. My husband and I are looking at our finances, our space, our lives. We can make it work. Technically, we can convert the office into a bedroom. We can afford another child, barely. We can juggle work and daycare and the needs of 2 kids instead of 1. But making it work isn't the same as thriving. It isn't the same as being happy. And I don't know if I'm allowed to prioritize my happiness when a 4-year-old's future hangs in the balance. So, Reddit, I need your help. I need someone to tell me what to do because I can't figure it out myself. Am I the asshole if I hesitate? If I don't immediately say yes? Is this my responsibility? I gave her up once. Am I obligated to take her back? What do I tell my husband, who married me expecting one kind of life and is now being asked to accept something completely different. What do I tell my son, who's 2 years old and doesn't understand why suddenly there's another child in our house? What do I tell my niece, when she's old enough to ask questions? When she wants to know why her mommy didn't want her? When she wants to know who I really am? What do I tell myself, if I say no and she ends up in foster care because I was too scared to step up? What do I tell myself, if I say yes and I can't handle it and I damage her even more? There's no right answer here. I know that. But I'm drowning and I don't know which way is up, and maybe if enough strangers on the internet tell me what they would do, I'll figure out what I should do. I love her. I know I love her. But is love enough? Please help. TLDR, I, 35F, was a surrogate for my sister 5 years ago, carried a baby made from her eggs and her husband's sperm. The child, 4F, has been raised by my sister as her daughter. Now my sister's marriage fell apart, she's having a mental health crisis, and she wants to give the child to me, or else surrender her to foster care. I'm married with a 2-year-old son, and my life isn't set up for this. I love my niece, but I don't know if I'm ready to be her mother. Everyone is sympathetic and everyone is broken. Help. ETA, to everyone asking, yes, my sister is in therapy. No, she's not consistent about it. Yes, I've tried to get her more help. She's resistant. She's convinced this is the right thing for everyone, that my niece will be better off with me. She keeps saying, you were always supposed to be her mother, I just got in the way. I don't think she's a monster. I think she's someone who wanted something so badly she convinced herself she could make it work, and then reality crushed her. I think she's drowning and doesn't know how to ask for help except by pushing everything away. I'm angry at her, but I also love her, and I know this is destroying her too. That doesn't make it okay. But it does make it complicated. As for my brother-in-law, I have a lot less sympathy for him. He cheated, abandoned his family, and now he's trying to pretend his daughter doesn't exist because it's inconvenient for his new life. If there's a villain in this story, it's him. But I can't make him be a father. I can't force him to care. And the courts won't either, not really. So here we are. No good choices. No clear path. Just a lot of pain and a little girl in the middle of it who deserves so much better than any of us have given her. Here's the question I can't answer. Is love enough? I carried her for 9 months. I felt her kick. I heard her first cry. Then I handed her to my sister and pretended I was just the vessel. 5 years ago, I was the selfless sister. The one who gave the greatest gift. Everyone praised me. I signed the papers, smiled in the photos, and went home to cry for 3 days. Then I got therapy, moved on, built a life. I thought that chapter was closed. Then my sister called at midnight. She's yours. Come get her. Her voice was hollow. Empty. If you don't take her, I'm calling CPS in the morning. My sister says she can't love her. How do you not love your own child? She says she's been performing motherhood for 4 years, waiting for the bond to form, and it never did. Her husband cheated, left, moved to another state. Wants a fresh start. Abandoned his daughter like inconvenient furniture. And now everyone's looking at me. She calls me auntie. She has no idea I'm the one who gave birth to her. If I take her now, what do I tell her when she's older? My husband says this isn't what he signed up for. He's right. We have a 2-year-old. A 3-bedroom house. A life built for a family of 3. But she's 4 years old and her mother is trying to give her away like a returned purchase. I gave her up so she could have a better life. Now that life is falling apart and everyone's looking at me to fix it. Do I want this? That's what I keep asking. Not can I, not should I, do I want this? I feel obligated. Of course I do. If I don't step up, she goes into foster care. But obligation isn't the same as wanting. And I'm scared that if I take her out of obligation, she'll feel it. Kids always know when they're not really wanted. Except, I do want her. I've always wanted her, in a secret, shameful way I never acknowledged. Every visit, part of me was jealous of my sister. Every goodbye, part of me wished I didn't have to leave. But wanting isn't the same as being ready. What if I take her and I turn out like my sister? What if I can't bond with her either? What if the love I feel now isn't enough when I'm explaining why her mommy and daddy didn't want her? Both her parents chose to walk away. I can dress it up however I want. That's the truth she'll carry forever. There's no right answer here. Every choice comes with damage. Say yes and my marriage strains, my son's life changes, and I become mother to a child built on lies. Say no and she enters foster care because I was too scared to step up. I love her. I know I love her. But is love enough? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. The cousins aren't wrong that it's unfair. They're just wrong about who made it unfair. Posted to r/am ithasshole. I'm sitting in my grandmother's apartment as I write this. Her reading glasses are still on the side table next to her chair, and I haven't been able to move them. The afternoon light is coming through the tall windows the way it always did when I was a child, casting long golden rectangles across the herringbone floors. Everything smells like her, lavender and old paper and something I can't name but would recognize anywhere. In my hand is a letter from a law firm I've never heard of, informing me that my 3 cousins are formally contesting my grandmother's will. I've read it 4 times now, and each time the words seem less real. Allege that the deceased lacked testamentary capacity. My grandmother, who could recite the provenance of every piece in her collection until the day she died. Undue influence exercised by the beneficiary. Me, who lived 200 miles away and visited when I could, never enough, never as much as I wanted to. I should be angry. I think I'm supposed to be angry. But mostly I just feel tired, and sad, and small in a way I haven't felt since I was a child sitting in this exact spot, listening to my grandmother explain why the frame around a painting mattered as much as the painting itself. Some nights I think I should just give them what they want. Let them sell it, take my quarter, walk away with some money and no family. But then I look around at these walls, at the art she spent her lifetime collecting, at the apartment that holds 60 years of memories, and I don't know how to let it go. I should explain who I am and what this place means. I'm 28 years old. I work as a curator at a regional history museum. Not glamorous, not prestigious, but I love it. I spend my days preserving things, protecting stories, making sure that beautiful objects survive to be understood by people who haven't been born yet. It's the only job I've ever wanted. I got that from her. My grandmother's apartment is in the old part of the city, in a building that was constructed in the 1890s. She moved here with my grandfather in 1962, and after he died in 1987, she stayed. The apartment became her project, her passion, her legacy. Every room is filled with things she collected, not valuable in the way my cousins think, not like there's a secret Picasso hidden in the back room, but valuable in the way that matters to people like her. Like me. There's a writing desk that belonged to a minor poet nobody remembers anymore, with ink stains on the leather top that might have been made by his own hand. There's a collection of cameos that span 3 centuries, each one with a story my grandmother could tell. There's a wall of paintings, local artists, mostly, people who never became famous but who captured something true about the places they lived. The oldest thing in the apartment is a medieval prayer book, illuminated by monks who have been dead for 600 years. The newest is a ceramic vase made by a friend of my grandmother's who passed away last spring. None of these things have massive auction value. The apartment itself, though, that's a different story. Real estate in the old district has exploded over the past decade. The building has been converted to condos, and similar units have sold for sums that make my museum salary look like a joke. My cousins know this. They've known it for years. I think they've been waiting. The will was simple and explicit. My grandmother left the apartment and its contents to me, and only me. She included a letter explaining why, which the lawyer read aloud at the initial meeting. I leave this apartment to my granddaughter because she understands the value of preserving beautiful things. She has spent her life learning to care for history. I trust her to honor what I have built here, to keep these walls standing and these stories alive. The others will not understand, and I am sorry for that. But some things matter more than fairness. When the lawyer finished reading, the room was silent. My mother reached over and squeezed my hand. My aunt, my oldest cousin's mother, stood up and walked out without a word. That was 3 months ago. Since then, my cousins have gone from shocked to hurt to angry to what I can only describe as organized. They've found a lawyer willing to take their case. They've built their argument. And now they're coming for everything. Update 1. 2 weeks later. I need to talk about my cousins, because I know how this sounds. I know it sounds like I'm the victim and they're the villains, and that's not quite right. They're not evil. I need you to understand that. My oldest cousin is 42. She has 3 kids, the oldest about to start college. Her husband was laid off 2 years ago and only recently found work again, at a significant pay cut. They're not poor, but they're struggling in that particular way that middle-class people struggle. Everything looks fine from the outside, but they're one emergency away from disaster. My middle cousin is 39. He went through a brutal divorce last year, one of those situations where everyone loses and the lawyers win. He's paying child support and alimony and rent on a 1-bedroom apartment that he calls the box. He sees his kids every other weekend and talks about them like they're the only thing keeping him breathing. My youngest of the three is 34. She's the one I was closest to growing up, before everything fractured. She's single, no kids, works in marketing, makes decent money, but she also has student loans that will follow her to the grave and credit card debt she accumulated during a depressive episode in her late 20s that she's still climbing out from under. They're not asking for my grandmother's apartment because they're greedy. They're asking because they're desperate, or tired, or just looking at a number that could change their lives and wondering why one cousin gets everything while they get nothing. It's not about the stuff, my youngest cousin said to me last week, the only time any of them have spoken to me directly since this started. It's about fairness. It's about family. Grandmother loved all of us. Why should her death only benefit one of us? I didn't have a good answer. I still don't. Is a building worth more than belonging? I keep asking myself that and I never have an answer. Their legal argument is that my grandmother wasn't in her right mind when she wrote the will. That at 87, with mild cognitive decline and significant isolation, she couldn't have fully understood what she was doing. That I, her favorite grandchild, must have influenced her somehow, visited more often than I did, whispered in her ear, turned her against the others. It's insulting. It's infuriating. It's also, I'm terrified to admit, not entirely without foundation. My grandmother did have mild cognitive decline. She forgot appointments sometimes. She occasionally called me by my mother's name. In her last year, she would sometimes lose track of time, thinking it was morning when it was evening, summer when it was winter. But she never forgot her collections. She never forgot the stories. She never forgot who I was or why I mattered to her or what this apartment meant. Her mind was sharp as a blade when it came to the things she loved. I believe she knew exactly what she was doing when she wrote that will. I believe it with everything I have. But belief isn't evidence. And doubt creeps in at night, when I'm alone in her bedroom, sleeping in the bed where she died, wondering if I really knew her as well as I thought I did. My grandmother chose me. But did she choose correctly? Or did she just choose the person most like her? Update 2, 6 weeks in. The legal process is exhausting. My lawyer, a kind, overworked woman who took my case at a reduced rate because she believes in it, has warned me that these contests can drag on for years. That even with strong evidence of my grandmother's capacity, the courts move slowly. That the longer this goes on, the more it costs, the more it drains, the more I'll question whether it was worth it. I've already spent money I didn't have. I've taken on extra hours at the museum to cover the legal fees. I've started selling things, not from the apartment, I could never, but from my own small collection. A first edition I found at an estate sale. A set of antique maps I bought with my first real paycheck. Things that mattered to me, but not as much as this. My cousins, I've learned, are pooling their resources. They've started a group text that I'm obviously not part of, but that I hear about from relatives who try to stay neutral. They're coordinating their testimony. They're building their case piece by piece, 3 against 1, and I'm starting to understand how alone I really am. I've started avoiding family events. It's easier than watching people I grew up with look at me like I'm a thief. My parents came to visit last weekend. They made dinner in my grandmother's kitchen, using her pots and pans, and we ate at her table, and nobody mentioned the lawsuit. My mother asked about my job. My father asked about my car. We talked about the weather. When they left, my mother hugged me for a long time and said, "We love you. You know we love you." But she didn't say she was on my side. She didn't say she believed I was doing the right thing. She just said she loved me, which felt like a consolation prize for something I'd already lost. Update 3, the diary. I found my grandmother's diary 3 days ago. I wasn't looking for it. I was cleaning out a closet, trying to make space, trying to feel like this apartment was mine now and not just a haunted museum of someone else's life. The diary was in a shoebox, wedged between winter scarves and a broken umbrella she never threw away. It spans the last 15 years of her life. The handwriting starts steady and grows shakier over time, but the voice is unmistakably hers, sharp, observant, sometimes funny, often sad. She writes about all of us. All 4 grandchildren. She writes about birthday calls and missed visits and the particular quality of loneliness that comes from outliving everyone you started with. About my oldest cousin, she called today to ask if I'd updated my insurance forms. Said she was worried about me. I don't think she's worried about me. I think she's worried about what happens after me. I tried to remember the last time she visited just to visit, not because she needed something, and I couldn't. About my middle cousin, he brought the children last month. They ran through the apartment like it was a playground, knocked over the miniature carousel, broke one of the horses. He didn't apologize. He said I shouldn't have fragile things lying around. As if this apartment hasn't been standing for a century, as if his children couldn't be expected to behave for an afternoon. About my youngest cousin, I love her. I do. But she looks at my things the way her mother does, not at what they are, but at what they're worth. She asked me once what I would sell if I needed money. As if I would ever need money badly enough to sell pieces of my own heart. And then, about me, she sat with me for 3 hours today, just looking at the cameos. She asked questions I haven't been asked in 40 years. She touched them gently, like they might feel pain. When she left, I felt less alone than I have in months. She sees what I see. She loves what I love. She is the only one who could take care of this place after I'm gone. I cried reading that. I cried for an hour, sitting on the floor of that closet, surrounded by old scarves and memories and the weight of being chosen. But there's more. There are also entries where she second-guesses herself, where she worries about what she's setting in motion. I know this will hurt them. I know they'll feel abandoned, or cheated, or both. But I cannot leave this apartment to be divided and sold. I cannot let everything I've built become numbers in someone's bank account. Is that selfish? Maybe. I've been selfish about these walls my whole life. I don't know how to stop now. I wonder sometimes if I'm punishing them for being less like me. If that's fair. It's not their fault that they don't love old things, that they don't see beauty where I see it. They were raised in a different world. But I can't pretend they're something they're not. I can't leave my life's work to people who will destroy it out of indifference. I talked to the lawyer again today. He asked if I was certain. I said yes. I don't know if that was true. Reading her doubts felt like a betrayal somehow. Like she was supposed to be sure, supposed to be unwavering, supposed to have chosen me from some position of absolute clarity. Instead, she was human. Uncertain. Trying to do the right thing while knowing there might not be a right thing to do. The cousins aren't wrong that it's unfair. They're just wrong about who made it unfair. Update 4. The mediation. Our lawyers suggested mediation before going to trial. A chance to talk, to compromise, to find some middle ground before the courts make the decision for us. We met in a conference room that smelled like carpet cleaner and burnt coffee. My 3 cousins sat on one side of the table. I sat on the other. Alone. The mediator was a patient woman with gray hair and a practiced neutral expression. She asked each of us to share our perspective, to really listen, to try to understand where the others were coming from. My oldest cousin went first. She talked about how hard the past few years have been, how she lies awake at night doing math in her head, trying to figure out how to pay for braces and college and the roof that needs replacing. She talked about how she'd always assumed that when grandmother died, there would be something for all of them, not just one. We're not trying to be cruel, she said. We're not trying to take something that belongs to you. We're trying to survive. And it feels like grandmother forgot about us. Like she looked at her 4 grandchildren and decided 3 of them didn't matter. My middle cousin was angrier. He talked about the divorce, about the child support, about the child he barely gets to see. He talked about sitting in his box apartment, looking at pictures of his kids, doing the math on what a quarter of that apartment's value could do for his life. Do you know what I could do with that money? I could get a real place. I could have room for my kids to stay overnight. I could be a father again instead of a visitor. He looked directly at me. What are you going to do with a 6-room apartment in the old district? You're single. You don't have kids. You work at a museum. You don't need it. We do. My youngest cousin was the hardest to hear. Because she wasn't angry. She was sad. We used to be close, she said to me. Do you remember? We used to share things. We used to talk. Now I feel like grandmother built a wall between us. Like she decided you were worthy and we weren't, and now I have to live with that for the rest of my life. Her voice cracked. I don't care about the money. Not really. I care about what it means that she didn't think of us. I care about losing my cousin. I care about this family falling apart. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't know what to say. I tried to explain what the apartment meant to me. The history. The memories. The promise I made to myself that I would honor what my grandmother built. But even as I said the words, they felt thin. Abstract. Hard to weigh against mortgage payments and child support and the specific, quantifiable pain of not having enough. I know it's unfair, I said finally. I know you're struggling. I know grandmother's choice hurt you, and I'm sorry for that. But I didn't make this choice. She did. And she had her reasons. Her reasons were that she loved you more than us, my oldest cousin said. Not angry. Just stating a fact. I didn't argue. How could I? She was probably right. The mediation ended without resolution. We agreed to keep talking, but we all knew we were just delaying the inevitable. Either I give up the apartment, or we go to court. I don't know if I'm fighting for grandmother's wishes or just fighting because I don't know how to surrender. Update 5 now. It's been 4 months since I got that first letter. 4 months of lawyers and sleepless nights and family gatherings I don't attend and phone calls I don't return. The legal case is still ongoing. My lawyer says we have a strong position, the will is clear, there's no evidence of undue influence, and my grandmother's doctor is willing to testify that she was mentally competent. But strong positions can still lose. And even if I win, what exactly do I win? An apartment full of ghosts. A family that will never speak to me again. A victory that feels like loss no matter how I frame it. I've been going through my grandmother's things more carefully now. Not to sell them or to catalog them for the legal case, but to understand them. To understand her. I found letters she wrote to my grandfather after he died. Letters she never sent, obviously, but that she kept writing for years. In one of them, she describes this apartment as the only place in the world where I know exactly who I am. I understand that feeling. I feel it too, standing in these rooms, surrounded by these objects. This is the only place where I feel completely like myself. But is that enough? Is my sense of self-worth more than my cousin's relationship with his children? Is my aesthetic attachment worth more than my other cousin's desperate need for financial security? I don't know. I've never known. I keep hoping the answer will become clear, but it doesn't. It just gets more complicated. My parents called yesterday. They want to have dinner. They want to talk about the situation. I know they want me to compromise, to give in, to make peace. Part of me wants that too. Part of me wants to call my cousins and say, fine. You win. Take the apartment. Sell everything. I'll take my quarter and walk away. But then I think about the prayer book illuminated by monks 600 years ago. I think about the cameos my grandmother showed me when I was 8 years old, explaining how the artists carved them in negative space, creating beauty from absence. I think about the writing desk where a forgotten poet might have drafted his only published work. My cousins would sell all of it. Not because they're bad people, but because they don't see it. They don't understand that some things are more valuable than their price. My grandmother knew that. She spent her whole life knowing that. And she trusted me to keep knowing it after she was gone. So I don't call them. I don't give in. I don't compromise. And I don't know if that makes me strong or stubborn, principled or selfish. So, Reddit, I'm asking. Am I the asshole for fighting to keep this apartment? Should I give up? Compromise somehow? Sell the contents and keep the space, or keep the contents and sell the space, or just surrender entirely and try to salvage what's left of my family? I've been thinking about this for months, and I'm no closer to an answer than I was when I started. Some days I think my grandmother was right, that some things matter more than fairness, that beauty and history and preservation are worth fighting for. Other days I think I'm just a selfish woman clinging to real estate while my relatives struggle. My grandmother chose me. But she wasn't sure it was the right choice. She wrote that herself, in her own words, in her own shaky handwriting. How can I be sure when she wasn't? I love this apartment. I love what it represents. I love who I am when I'm here. But I also loved my family once, before all of this. I loved Sunday dinners where everyone talked too loud. I loved holidays where the kids ran screaming through my aunt's house. I loved being part of something bigger than myself. Now I'm part of a lawsuit. Part of a conflict. Part of a story that will be told at family gatherings for generations, assuming there are any family gatherings left to have. Is a building worth more than belonging? I keep asking myself that, and I never have an answer. Maybe you do. TLDR, my grandmother left me her apartment, worth a lot, and art collection, worth less but priceless to me, in her will. My 3 cousins are contesting it, arguing she wasn't mentally competent and that it's unfair for one grandchild to inherit everything. They have real financial struggles. I have real emotional attachment. I found my grandmother's diary and she wasn't even sure she made the right choice. The legal battle continues. I'm exhausted and I don't know what's right anymore. Should I keep fighting or let go? Edit. I want to clarify one thing since I've seen it in the comments. I have considered offering them a buyout, letting them sell the apartment and its contents, and I would buy back the items I care most about. But there are 2 problems. First, I don't have the money. My share of the sale wouldn't cover the items I'd want to preserve. Second, my grandmother specifically asked me to keep the apartment intact. These walls have heard 60 years of living, she wrote. Don't let them become someone else's blank canvas. I don't know how to honor that wish and also make peace with my cousins. Maybe that's impossible. Maybe I'm the one making it impossible. Edit 2. Someone asked why I don't just let them buy me out. They take the apartment, I walk away with money. The answer is the same as above. It's not about the money for me. It never was. But I understand that's hard for people to believe, especially people who need money. Especially my cousins. Edit 3. I should also say, my grandmother wasn't wealthy in the way that makes this easy. She didn't have savings or investments to leave everyone. The apartment was her entire estate. Her life savings, converted into walls and windows and 60 years of careful curation. When she left it to me, she left me everything she had. Which is why my cousins feel the way they feel. I understand that. I do. I just don't know what to do about it. I'm going to stop writing now. It's getting dark outside, and the light in this apartment does something strange at dusk. It makes everything look golden, precious, like the whole room has been dipped in amber. My grandmother used to call it the honey hour. She said it was her favorite time of day. I'm sitting in her chair, looking at her things, trying to feel her presence or her guidance or something that will tell me what to do. But she's gone, and she left me with a gift that might also be a curse, and I'm no closer to knowing the difference than I was 4 months ago. If you made it this far, thank you for reading. I know it was long. I know it's complicated. I know there probably isn't a right answer. But if you have one, I'm listening. Here's what I don't know, whether I'm honoring my grandmother or just being stubborn. She chose me. She wrote it in her own handwriting, explained it to her lawyer, left a letter saying I was the only one who understood. For months I held onto that certainty like a lifeline. Then I found her diary. She wasn't sure. She wrote about her doubts late at night, in shaky handwriting that got worse over the years. She wondered if she was punishing her other grandchildren for being different from her. She asked herself if it was selfish to care more about objects than people. She talked to her lawyer and said she was certain, then wrote that same night, I don't know if that was true. How can I be sure when she wasn't? My cousins aren't evil. I need people to understand that. They're struggling. One is about to lose her house. One barely sees his kids because he can't afford an apartment with a spare bedroom. One carries debt from a depressive episode that will follow her for decades. They look at this apartment and see numbers that could change their lives. I look at it and see 600 years of history that will be scattered to estate sales and auction houses the moment I let go. The cousins aren't wrong that it's unfair. They're just wrong about who made it unfair. I didn't write that will. I didn't ask to be chosen. I didn't whisper in my grandmother's ear or manipulate her into leaving me everything. I just showed up. I sat with her for hours looking at cameos. I asked questions about the prayer book illuminated by monks who've been dead for centuries. I touched her things gently, like they might feel pain. She saw herself in me. Maybe that's love. Maybe that's just narcissism dressed up as legacy. Is a building worth more than belonging? I keep asking myself that and I never have an answer. I've started avoiding family events. It's easier than watching people I grew up with look at me like I'm a thief. My parents stay neutral, which feels like abandonment wearing a polite mask. My youngest cousin, the one I used to be close to, said she doesn't care about the money. She cares about what it means that grandmother didn't think of them. I don't know how to argue with that. I don't know how to explain that grandmother did think of them, she just didn't like what she saw. Some nights I think I should just give them what they want. Let them sell it, take my quarter, walk away with some money and no family. Start over somewhere without 60 years of someone else's memories pressing against me from every wall. But then I look at the writing desk where a forgotten poet might have drafted his only published work. I look at the cameos my grandmother showed me when I was 8. I look at the medieval prayer book that survived 6 centuries only to end up here, in my hands, waiting to see if I'm strong enough to protect it. My grandmother trusted me with everything she spent her life building. Not money, meaning. Not real estate, memory. I don't know if I'm fighting for her wishes or just fighting because I don't know how to surrender. The legal battle continues. My lawyer says we have a strong position. But even if I win, what do I win? An apartment full of ghosts. A family that will never speak to me again. A victory that feels like loss no matter how I frame it. I keep waiting for clarity. For some sign that I'm doing the right thing. For my grandmother's voice in my head telling me to hold on or let go. But she's gone. And she left me with a gift that might also be a curse. I still don't know the difference.